Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants respect. But let me tell you something, wishing doesn't set the standard. Talking about it doesn't set the standard. You can't just say you want it and expect it to show up at your doorstep. You've got to be the standard. You've got to live it, breathe it, and grind for it every single day. When people look at you, they should know exactly what excellence looks like, not because you told them, but because you showed them. The biggest reason so many people never reach their full potential is because they keep lowering their own bar. They adjust their standards downward so they can feel comfortable instead of stretching upward to grow. They ask themselves, what's the least I can do and still get by? Instead of asking, what's the most I can give and still not be satisfied? That's why mediocrity feels crowded. It's full of people who settled. But greatness, that lane is empty because very few are willing to keep their standards high when the pressure shows up. When you lower your bar, you tell yourself that average is acceptable. You convince yourself that excuses are okay. You give yourself permission to quit when things get uncomfortable. And little by little, you begin living a life far beneath the one you were designed for. But when you refuse to lower your standard, when you set the bar high and hold it there, you force yourself to grow into a stronger version of yourself. You stop being driven by convenience and start being driven by conviction. Look around you. Every champion, every leader, every person you admire has one thing in common. They refuse to let comfort define them. They chose the harder path when the easy one was available. They set the standard for themselves so high that failure wasn't even an option, because even their worst, effort was still at a level most people never reach. That's the mindset you've got to adopt if you want to win in life. Now, here's the reality: people will always try to get you to lower your bar. Friends will say, relax, you're doing too much. Family will say, don't push yourself so hard. Society will say, why not just settle? It's good enough. But good enough is the death of greatness. Every time you lower your bar to match other people's comfort zones, you shrink your future. You weren't built to be average. You weren't put here just to exist. You were built to raise the standard so high that your life becomes an example of what's possible when someone refuses to compromise. And here's the truth: holding a high standard is uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. It demands discipline. It means you're going to have nights where you work while everyone else sleeps, mornings where you grind while others complain, and seasons where you walk alone because most people aren't willing to pay the price. But the reward of living at your standard, not theirs, is that you build a life of excellence. You build a reputation that can't be questioned. You build results that can't be denied. So stop lowering your bar. Stop watering down your goals to make other people comfortable. Stop treating your potential like it's negotiable. If you want to live a life that matters, set your standard so high that average becomes impossible. Hold yourself to it even when it hurts. Push yourself beyond the point where most people would quit, because the moment you do, you'll stop being ordinary and start becoming unstoppable. People are watching you whether you realize it or not. Every action you take is communicating something. Every choice is telling a story. The way you show up to work, the way you treat people, the way you deal with adversity, it's all leaving an impression. And here's the truth: you're either becoming an example for people to follow, or you're becoming an excuse for people to remain the same. That's the line you have to face. When you set the standard high and live by it, people see possibility. They see what discipline looks like. They see what commitment feels like. You give them a model of excellence that challenges them to elevate their own lives. But when you cut corners, when you talk big but act small, when you say you want greatness but settle for average, you don't just hurt yourself. You give others permission to settle too. You become the proof that mediocrity is acceptable. And that's dangerous. Think about the influence you hold without even realizing it. Maybe it's your kids watching how you handle pressure. If you fold, they learn folding is normal. But if you push, if you stand tall, if you grind through the storm, they learn that resilience is the standard. Maybe it's your coworkers. If you show up late, unprepared, halfway invested, you give them a silent green light to do the same. But if you show up ready, consistent, hungry, you raise the temperature of the whole room. Energy spreads, whether it's lazy energy or disciplined energy. The world doesn't need more excuses. It doesn't need more people pointing to reasons why they can't. It needs more examples, living proof of what happens when somebody refuses to compromise. And here's the thing, being the example isn't always comfortable. You won't always get applause for it. Sometimes you'll be misunderstood, even criticized, because you're holding yourself to a level others don't want to reach. But being the example was never about being liked. It's about being true. It's about standing so firm in your standards that people can't deny the difference in you. Ask yourself this: when people look at my life, do they see discipline or distraction? Do they see consistency or excuses? Do they see someone who says, I'll do whatever it takes, or someone who says, that's too hard? You can't claim both. If you want to lead, if you want to inspire, if you want to set the standard, you can't just talk. You've got to walk it every single day. So stop giving people excuses to stay average. Stop showing them the easy way out. Stop lowering the light of your potential to match their dimness. Instead, be the spark, be the fire, be the living, breathing example of what's possible when someone chooses to set the standard high and refuses to drop it. Because when you do, you won't just change your life, you'll give others permission to rise with you. Everybody loves to talk about big wins, big moments, and big breakthroughs. But the truth is, those highlights don't come out of nowhere. They're built on the foundation of the small, daily things that most people overlook. Excellence doesn't start on the stage, it starts in the quiet places. It starts with the details. How you wake up, how you prepare, how you follow through. And the way you handle the small things will always determine whether or not you're ready for the big ones. C, most people underestimate the small thing because they don't look impressive. Nobody claps for you when you wake up early. Nobody's cheering when you choose discipline over distraction. Nobody congratulates you for showing up on time every day. But those little choices are the bricks that build your future. The big wins only come because you stayed faithful in the details that nobody else thought mattered. Champions don't become champions in the ring. They're just recognized there. They become champions long before, in the little moments when they chose discipline, focus, and consistency. Excellence in the small things is about refusing to cut corners. It's about doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. It's about holding yourself to a higher level, not just when the spotlight is on you, but in the hidden moments when you could easily slack off. Because here's the truth. If you cut corners in private, you'll collapse in public. If you're sloppy with the small things, you won't magically rise when the big opportunity shows up. Pressure doesn't create habits, it exposes them. Think about it. If you can't be trusted to manage your time, how can you be trusted with bigger responsibility? If you can't be consistent with small disciplines, how can you expect to handle larger challenges? Excellence compounds. Every small choice is either building your standard or breaking it. Every small habit is either sharpening you or dulling you. And when you stack enough small disciplines together, they become unstoppable momentum. The people who rise above, the people who separate themselves, are the ones who treat every moment like it matters. They don't just wait for the big break. They prepare for it by dominating the details of today. They don't just celebrate the mountaintop, they train on the ground every single day. Excellence is a lifestyle, not a one-time achievement. So ask yourself, how are you handling the little things? Do you take shortcuts when no one's watching? Do you only give your best when eyes are on you? Or are you the kind of person who shows up with discipline and consistency no matter how small the task? Because the truth is, if you can master the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. Excellence in the small things is what separates the average from the extraordinary. It's what builds confidence, character, and credibility. So don't wait for a big stage to decide to be great. Decide right now in the small things to set the standard. Because greatness doesn't start with what's seen. It starts with what's unseen. When you set the standard, you can't expect everybody to clap for you. In fact, the higher you raise your bar, the more uncomfortable you'll make the people around you. That's because your discipline, your focus, your refusal to settle exposes the excuses of others. Some will admire it, some will be inspired by it, but many will feel threatened by it. They'll try to talk you down, convince you to relax, or make you feel guilty for wanting more. That's the reality of leadership. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, you won't always be celebrated, you'll often be criticized. But here's the thing, you don't set the standard for applause, you set it for alignment. You set it because you know who you are, where you're going, and what it's going to take to get there. The moment you start chasing approval, you weaken your commitment. You can't please people and chase greatness at the same time. At some point, you've got to decide whose voice matters more, the crowd's or your calling's. And when you choose your calling, you've got to accept that rejection is part of the process. Every time you refuse to lower your bar, you're making a statement. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I demand from myself. And that level of conviction will always separate you. It will put you in rooms other people can't access. It will open doors other people can't walk through. And it will give you results that excuses can never buy. But it also means you're going to walk alone sometimes. It means you'll be misunderstood, criticized, and maybe even mocked. And you've got to be strong enough to handle that without flinching. Understand this. Rejection isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's often proof you're doing something right. If everyone is comfortable with your standard, chances are your standard isn't high enough. Growth requires tension. Progress requires resistance. And when you face pushback, it's not a signal to stop. It's a signal to keep going. It's life's way of asking, do you really want this? Are you willing to stand firm, even when it costs you? The truth is, your standard is your shield. It protects you from mediocrity. It protects you from compromise. It protects you from living a life beneath your potential. And yes, it will separate you from people who aren't willing to rise with you. But that separation is necessary. Because not everyone is meant to walk your path. Not everyone is built for your level of discipline. And if you try to drag everyone with you, you'll water down your standard until it looks like theirs. So don't fear rejection. Don't run from criticism. Don't lower your bar just to make people more comfortable with your shine. Instead, embrace it. Wear it as proof that you're setting yourself apart. Because when you live with that kind of commitment, you won't just set the standard, you'll redefine it. Consistency is what proves whether your standard is real or just talk. Anybody can be motivated for a day, inspired for a week, or disciplined for a season. But consistency is the test of character. It's easy to show up when you feel good, when the mood is right, when everything's lining up in your favor. The real question is, can you still show up when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when no one's clapping for you? That's where credibility is built. That's where respect is earned. That's where you separate yourself from the crowd. See, people don't trust what you say. They trust what you do repeatedly. If you say you're about discipline, but your actions only prove it once in a while, your words lose power. But if you show up day after day, even in small things, your life speaks louder than any speech ever could. Consistency creates trust, and trust creates influence. And influence is what allows you to raise others to your standard. Without consistency, you're just noise. With consistency, you become a force. Think about it. Success isn't built in dramatic bursts. It's not about one lucky break or one massive leap. Success is a pattern, a rhythm of disciplined choices stacked on top of each other. The athlete who dominates didn't just train hard one week, he trained daily for years. The business owner who thrives didn't just work hard one season, they built brick by brick, day after day. The parent who earns respect from their kids doesn't just show up once in a while, they stay present consistently. Consistency turns effort into excellence. And here's the part most people don't like to hear: consistency isn't glamorous. It's repetitive. It's ordinary. It's doing the same things over and over until they become a part of who you are. That's why most people don't stick with it. They want excitement, not repetition. But repetition is what sharpens skill. Repetition is what builds habits. Repetition is what makes excellence automatic. When you commit to consistency, you no longer rely on mood. You rely on discipline. Every time you keep showing up, you're building credibility not only with others, but with yourself. You start to trust yourself more. You stop doubting whether you can keep commitments because you've proven you can. That self-trust builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum. Before long, people can look at your life and say, I can count on them. That's power. That's leadership. That's the result of consistency. So don't chase quick results. Don't get frustrated when progress feels slow. Don't measure yourself by how big the leap is today. Instead, measure yourself by the standard of showing up daily, because credibility isn't built in one day. It's built day after day. And when you choose consistency, you don't just build results, you build a reputation. And that reputation becomes your proof that you didn't just talk about setting the standard. You lived it. Legacy isn't built in one moment. It's built through the pattern of your life. The standard you set for yourself today doesn't just impact you, it echoes into the people around you and the generations coming after you. Every decision you make, every standard you choose to hold, every discipline you keep, it's writing a story that others will either be inspired by or warned about. And here's the truth. Whether you like it or not, you're leaving behind a legacy. The question is, what kind of legacy will it be? Your legacy isn't about titles, money, or recognition. Those things fade. People forget your achievements, but they remember your character. They remember how you lived, how you treated people, how you carried yourself in hard times. That's why your standard matters so much. It's the footprint you leave for others to follow. If you lower your standard, you leave behind a trail of compromise. If you stay disciplined, focused, and committed, you leave behind a trail of greatness that others can walk in. Think about the people you admire the most. They're not remembered because they had it easy. They're remembered because they stood firm when it was hard. They set a standard for how to live, how to fight, how to overcome, how to persevere. And now their lives inspire others to keep going. That's legacy. That's influence that outlies you. When you set the standard, you're not just shaping your own future. You're shaping futures you may never even see. The way you live teaches your children, your friends, your coworkers what's possible. Your consistency, your integrity, your discipline. It raises the bar for them too. You might not even realize it, but your standard could be the very thing that gives someone else the courage to aim higher in their own life. That's the power of legacy. But here's the catch, you don't build that kind of legacy by accident. You build it with intention. You build it by refusing to settle for less when life tempts you to. You build it by choosing character over comfort, principle over popularity, faithfulness over shortcuts. You build it by deciding, I may not be perfect, but I'm going to live in a way that sets an example worth following. At the end of the day, the cars, the houses, the trophies, they won't define you. What will define you is the standard you live by. Did you push yourself to become the best version of you? Did you live with consistency and integrity? Did you refuse to compromise even when it was easier to quit? That's the measure of a life well lived. So don't just set the standard for today. Set it for your legacy. Live in a way that when people hear your name, they think about excellence, strength, and resilience. Because when the dust settles and your time is done, your standard will speak louder than anything else. And if you set it high enough, it will keep speaking long after you're gone.